Okay, so being such a Commodore fan geek that I am, I thought to myself, let's update my previous Retroarch Amiga video to something a bit more modern and a bit more comprehensive so everything's in one. So for this setup guide, I'm going to look at showing you how to set up the Commodore Amiga 500, 600 in 1200 using Retroarch. And after I'm done with that, I'm also going to be showing you how to set up and run Amiga CD32. So, as we know, Amiga emulation at times is complex and is something I've covered on this channel in the past. So, if you check out my playlists on micro emulation standalones, I've covered WinUAE setup. So, I'm looking at Amiga systems today and I'm going to be showing you a lot. So, we're looking at multiple disks and how to change them within RetroArch. I'm looking at configurations such as controller configurations, video settings, kickstart files, what you need. So if you're a big Amiga fan like I am, or a general Commodore fan, you're going to like this video, so check this one out. Okay, so before we start today, if you like what you see, just hit notifications and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss upcoming content that I upload every day. I cover RetroBat, RetroWatch, of course, Launchbox, Batacera, and lots of different standalone emulators for microcomputers as well as consoles of yesteryear. So we're first of all today looking at Amiga in general. So of course most games or remembered games are for the Amiga 500. The Amiga 600 was pretty much a glorified Amiga 500, but in a smaller case, but that's a story for another time. And we've got the amazing Amiga 1200, which introduced the AGA chip, which made our games look better at the time, and some of these still look stunning to date. So first thing what we're going to do then is actually look at the files we need. So in my Kickstart file just here, this is pretty much every Kickstart ROM that you need. And if you take a look at these, we got .A500 and we got two of these, and we got another .A500, A1200, CD32 and so on. So you need to remember that in terms of RetroArch with the core I'm using for Amiga, which is going to be PUAE core, it's pretty much a branch or rather a fork from WinUAE. It's very choosy, it's very fussy on the names of our files or Kickstart ROMs. So what I've got just here is pretty much what you need. And don't change these files. Now, if you download or pay for your ROM files, your Kickstart files through Amiga Forever, then some of these files might need changing. So I'll leave a link in my description for the RetroArch conventions of naming your Kickstart files. But this is very important that you keep these in that naming convention, how RetroArch wants them to be. And next up for the Amiga 500, 600, and 1200, we got Amiga ADF games. So I've got two games here. We got a single disc game, which is Magic Boy. And you know, some people might laugh at this game, but it's a game I bought from the shop in Britain called Game at the time. That was on their last legs of selling Amiga stuff just as the PlayStation was taking place. So we got a single game here, which is ADF. Now, a .adf is pretty much a floppy disk file image. And if we back out of here, I've also got another game which is just a true gem, Jim Power. And the reason I'm using this one is because it's two discs, and I want to show you how to swap and change discs during gameplay. So let's actually go ahead and start setting up PUAE through RetroArch. So first of all, what we need to do is actually put these Kickstart files in place. Before I do that, I'm going to open up RetroArch and we're actually going to download the core itself. So if we go into Online Updater just here, and if we go to Core Downloader, we need to just scroll down just a touch until we come to Commodore. And here you are. So if you're new to RetroArch, the hashtags on the end means that these have already been downloaded and installed. So yes, I've already downloaded and installed these cores. So just make sure to download and install PUAE 2021. And whilst you're there, just grab yourself PUAE 2. So once you do that, let's just back out of here. And just for safekeeping, go to configuration file and just go to save new configuration, just so we don't lose that data that we've just downloaded and installed. And once you've done that, what we're going to do is just go to Quit Retroarch. So let's actually start putting these kickstart files into place. I will note here that the PUAE cores that we just downloaded and installed, they do come with a default ROM, but to be fair, they're not too compatible with most games, so it really is worth your while of heading over to Amiga Forever and purchasing those kickstart ROMs. So once you've got these kickstart ROMs, what we're going to do is just go to the Retroarch shortcut, open file location, and from here, if you just scroll upwards, we're going to see System. And in System, this is where we need to drag our Kickstart files. So open up your Kickstarts and just literally drag and drop what you've got inside of this System folder. And that's it. So we can close this down. Now let's open up Retroarch again. And what we're going to do now is just trial out one of these games. So I'm going to go to Load Content. And my games are located on my C drive. So what I'm going to do is obviously go into my C drive, and if I scroll down, I'm going to come across users. And if you've got your games located, say, on your desktop like me, then this will likely be the same for you as well, what I'm doing right now. And the computer name I'm using is obviously Jamie, so Jamie and desktop. And here we go, so Amiga ADF games. And the one I want open for this, just to test out if it's working, is Magic Boy, because this is a single disc game. So we're going to select magicboy.adf to open this. And here we go. This is our cores that we downloaded and installed. I'm going to use PUAE 2021 and just select that and give it a few seconds just to boot up. And here we go. Looks like we're straight in. And you've even got that authentic clicking noise of the disk drive. And what we need to do once we've got a game running, I'm going to just quickly run through this. If we just go into the quick menu, and I'm accessing this by PS button on my PlayStation 3 controller, just scroll down until you come to controls. And port 1 controls, device type needs to be put onto RetroPad. And if I back out of here and also go to port 2 and also select RetroPad for this one too, and back. Now, the way this is working for me is my cursor on my gaming laptop is acting, or is rather emulating, the Amiga tank mouse, for example. So I've just exited that screen to proceed it to load by just clicking on my mouse. So as we can see, that's loaded just fine, and it looks and it sounds really good too. So now we know this is up and running fine. What I'm going to show you next is how to import your games into Retroarch. So if we back out of here, just go down Restart Retroarch. And once we got a fresh new screen, what we're going to do is just go down to Import Content. And from here, I'm going to go to Manual Scan, Content Directory. Now, just like a minute ago when I loaded up my game, it's in my C drive because my Amiga ADF games are on my desktop. So that's my C drive. And if I go to the bottom, it's Users, and my computer's name is Jamie, and it's going to be on my desktop. And my Amiga games are here, Amiga ADF games. And what I'm going to do just here is now press on Scan this directory. And if I just hit up on my D-pad, go right to the bottom and just simply press on Start Scan. And if we back out of here, we can now see my folder has been added, or rather imported, to Retroarch. We can easily now just use Retroarch to open up these games. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Jim Power, and I'm going to go through the process of showing you how to swap disks once you're in a game. So I'm going to start with using disk 1 of 2, obviously, for Jim Power. So open, run, and again, I'm using PUAE 2021. If you find some games don't run, then it's worth taking a look at PUAE. So let's open this with PUAE 2021 and run. So I've accidentally loaded up a game which I'm not going to be needing the second disc for a little while, but I am going to show you how to load up the second disc. So you've got multiple games. In fact, most games on the Amiga 500, 1200, most of them is multiple discs. So what we're going to do to swap over disks, and I'm going to use, say, Cannon Fodder, for example, is just use quick menu, scroll down to disk control. And what we're going to do just here, if you see appear a option which says eject disk, then just press on eject disk and then just go down to load new disk and then obviously select disk 2 or disk 3 or disk 520 because some Amiga games really did have that many disks. So that's it. And also in Amiga games, it might ask you to swap back to the original disk 1 file. So if that happens, it's literally just a case then of the current disk index appearing, and it's going to be listed under here. So everything you load into it in insert will be listed under this disk index, you can see. Okay, now I'm going to talk to you about video settings on Amiga using PUAE. So let's spruce up how Jim Power looks. It's obviously in the 4:3 ratio, which is traditional and that's how it should look. But for those of you like myself that likes messing around with video settings, then it's just a simple case of going to quick menu. And from quick menu, we'll just scroll down until we get to core options. And once we're in PUAE's core options, we're going to see video. And this is where a lot of your video settings are to make the game look different, to make the pixelation go away. So we're going to start off with pixel aspect ratio. And by default, this one's going to be on standard. Now, you've got a choice here between NTSC or PAL. Now, obviously, both of these aspect ratios are going to be slightly different as the PAL Amiga machines are very different to NTSC machines. So that's up to you. I'm going to leave this on PAL. And if we go down one to resolution, we can go up to super high 1440 pixels just here, which I'm going to turn on. And if we go right to the bottom just there with color depth, we can actually put this onto 24-bit, which is going to make the colors look a lot better. There's going to be more colors, obviously. So let's just check out what Jim Power looks like now with these video settings applied. So main menu, quick menu, and resume. So definitely looking better, but we can make these video settings go a little bit further. So if we back out of this and we go into settings, we're going to go into video. And from video, we're going to go down to scaling and turn integer scaling on. So the picture, what we can see now, it's going to reduce in size, but it's going to almost compress it and it's going to make it look a lot better. So let's check this out. If we turn this on, let's go back into the game. Main menu, quick menu, resume. So as you can see, a lot smaller, but by far that larger size of the pixelation and that slight stretching is now gone. Let's go a bit further with this. If we go to settings again, and we go to video, and back down to scaling, what we can do here is now change the ratio of this. So what I do recommend on microcomputer games such as the Amiga or C64 is rather than using 16:9, which totally stretches the games out of proportion and it looks ridiculous, is just go down to full. So I'll show you the difference by using full just here. Go back into the game. So as you can see, there's slight stretch in there. Now, if I go to settings and video again, back down to scaling, I'm going to turn integer scale off. So that's the difference when you're using ratio sizes on Amiga emulation or emulation for this era of games in general. Turn integer scaling on, it will compress in size and those pixels won't be so stretched. Let me check this out again by putting some different settings in place to get the best visuals for this. So settings, video, scaling, I'm going to turn integer scaling back on, and aspect ratio, I'm going to use core provided. And yeah, it's a small screen, but by far this looks the best. So as you can see, it's a much smaller screen, but it really does look sharp. It looks really good. So what we're going to do next is just look at save state. So if we go back into the quick menu, we can quickly save this gameplay. We're going to go to save state. And now if I go to load state, and as you can see, that's now loaded up where I originally saved it from. So that's the Amiga general setup to get your 500, 600 or 1200 games up and running. Next up, I'm going to show you Amiga CD32. And before you close Retroarch down, once you've got your video settings in place to what you like, what we're going to do is just go to configuration file and save new configuration, because you don't want those settings missing. So let's look at Amiga CD32 this time. So let's talk about Amiga CD32 next. So just a minute ago when I set up Amiga 500 to 1200, we had kickstart files, and in those kickstart files was the files or ROM files that we needed for CD32. So I've got here a CD32 game, and this is Bubba in Sticks, and as we can see, this is called a .q file extension. And that's very typical of compact disc games from back in the day. And you'll probably see a lot of .wav files as well. That's your audio files. So what I'm going to do is open up Retroarch again. And this time I'm going to go to import content, manual scan, content directory, and it's on my desktop again. So C drive. And again, I'm going to just go down to users and Jamie, and obviously on the desktop, and CD32. And scan this directory, and again just go to the bottom and start scan. Now if we back out of here, we're going to see CD32, and here is my game. So to run this, I'm going to just select that .q file right at the bottom just there, and I'm going to run. And to run this, I'm going to be using Amiga PUAE 2021 again, and core is now set, and run. So as you can see, the settings are still set up from my Amiga Jim Power game, which I put in place just a minute ago. As we know now that PUAE also caters for Amiga CD32, so quite a simple process. So if you want to manipulate how this game looks for a CD32, it's just another process of going through those video settings. It really is that simple. So that's it for my Commodore Amiga 500 to 1200 setup today. If you're interested in Amiga emulation, I said it at the start of my video, I've covered on my channel under my micro standalone emulation playlist. I've covered WinUAE, FSUAE, I've covered Amiga on Retroarch, Launchbox. I've covered it on multiple platforms. I love the Amiga, just like I love my Commodore 64. So we've covered everything, and this should get you up and running for now. But if you are a big fan of Amiga, just check out my micro emulation playlist. You'll probably like some of that stuff I've put in there. So if you like what you see today, hit notifications and subscribe. And until next time, stay retro.